So Peter, tell us how you got involved with this particular tour.
I was contacted by Amos Newman and his management company who manage AR, and flew into LA and had a wonderful meeting with several of the people from management and one of the promoters, Deepak, and we talked theory. And basically it was interesting because in the past AR's tours have always been on rather smaller scale than this, and they already had it in mind that they wanted to do a larger type show, and we discussed the pros and cons of growing, so to speak, and time involved, my idea of what it would take for me to do what it is I do. And of course this was before Amy Tinkham came on board, so I really didn't have too much of an idea of what the show would be, other than the fact that they wanted to grow it. So I gave them, of course, exaggerated parameters so that I had more than enough rehearsal time and programming time, which is never enough in any case. And we had a wonderful meeting, and shortly thereafter I was informed I was on board, and we proceeded.
So what sort of, from the get-go in production meetings, informed your decisions about what was going to be in the rig, how the design was going to go, how you worked with the production designer, Butch Allen, on that?
Initially, it was really Amy Tinkham's renderings and JPEGs and outline of her idea of the show that drove it. And it had, not just initially, all the way through to this very moment. She envisioned a wonderful show, and I remember the email I sent her because the first input I had from her on this production, the JPEGs of the renderings she had done and the outline, it just blew me away. It was just wonderful, and you don't have to know a thing about A.R. Rahman to look, and you can still look at these renderings and her outline and her presentation to get a rather complete understanding of his music and what it represents. So that was a good start. And of course, Butch Allen got involved based on the same information I had, and did set renderings, and as he proceeded, of course, we bounced back and forth with, you're not giving me enough room here, or you gave me too much room there, and so forth and so on. So, the bounce back carried on for a month or so, then we had a few wonderful meetings, especially one in particular was a great production meeting with Amy and Butch and Bob O'Neill. We all got together and discussed the actual intricacies of lighting, video, set, scenics, and went basically through the show. We took what is now a 2.5 hour show. It took us about 6 hours to tiptoe through it, pick it apart, so that when we walked away into each of our own corners, we knew what we had to do.
Okay, so you want to talk a little bit about the rig itself, what's hung and what's being used for what?
Yeah, the rig's provided by Epic Productions, and originally, because of truck space and other issues, I was limited to a truck, and I had to make some decisions, and I was told, well, because of various sound points, we couldn't hang any side lighting. So I came up with this concept of a rear truss, of course, for backlighting, and what we call our mid-stage V, which is actually an inverted V, or a point from the audience perspective, which would kind of, in my mind, double as backlight, a little bit of front light, and cross light as it broadens out towards the front of the stage. And then with the forward, we call the thrust, the fish hook, it's a big circular ramp that we have out front. I overlaid another quote-unquote V truss over that for graphic, and also for front and for backwash and graphic backwash to the ramp and front wash to the stage itself. Well, fortunately, in the process of designing, I was able to get some side trussing too, even though it wasn't initially in the budget. It came to light that, well, we do need trussing to carry cable up and down the side of the stage. So I said, well, how about attaching some lights? So, though I wasn't able to get the traditional ladder lights that I prefer for a theatrical type presentation, that this might be considered, at least I got some side lighting, even though it was in a singular plane. It wasn't not in a vertical plane, which I would have preferred. The lighting is predominantly VL 3500 washes and VL3K spots. There are some 3500 spots out front so that I can frame and stay off some of the projection. And that's basically it. The basic approach to lighting this has been what I would call surgical. Since the show is predominantly based around projection and LED, we had to be careful to light specifically in areas that we avoid contaminating the projection surfaces, which has been kind of a futile exercise in some areas, but it's ongoing. In hindsight, there are different fixtures I might have specified, which with more shutter control, but we're learning as we're going. It's getting there.
Any special treatment to that ring around the front of the stage that separates that sort of front VIP seating area? There's some color blasts lining that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I didn't really like the idea of putting mini strips around the curved truss because I just didn't think it would be aesthetically pleasing, though it would have worked. I had to look at the chance that spotlights couldn't cover and could not always cover anything larger than a 3 or 4 person lineup out front. If he brought all his dancers and his 11 singers out to the front line, which does happen occasionally, I'd be in trouble because there is no front truss beyond the thrust of the stage. So I put the color blasts that are color balanced, tungsten level color blasts around the perimeter, the outer perimeter of the thrust, so that we at least get some uplighting on everyone when they're out there. Yes, a bit ghostly, but there's times actually it works quite nicely with the video. And then when we have the spotlights and they're functioning properly, it works out. The balance works out quite well. And we have more than enough backlight, of course, so it's not a problem.
What are the follow spots? Are you using house spots, or you're traveling with them?
There's just 3 in-truss rear spots, M2s. Everything else we rely on house. That was one of the first cuts that got given me, was my front spot truss and front lighting for the thrust. But this is, in this age of touring, that's the way life goes, and so we learn to make do with what we have. And we're getting there. It's been a bit more of a challenge to light, as I said, surgically with wash lights more than hard edge. And as I said, hindsight, I wish I had a few more spots than wash, but the 3500 wash is not only quite potent, but it does have a really wonderful narrow beam, and we have lots of positions available. So far, so good.
Well, good luck in the first show tonight.
Thank you.